All right, so the conclusion. The conclusion is like the introduction in the sense that they're both the bread on the sandwich, right? And it's good to have them, but not essential. You need to have some kind of concluding idea, and so instead of giving you what's a 9 conclusion, what's an 8 conclusion, what's a 7, there's not that big of a difference between the conclusion on those different items. Instead, what I did was I broke it into lower half types of conclusions and upper half types of conclusions. I gave you lots of different ideas for upper half papers, like 6, 7, 8, 9 is where we want to be with our scores. So we want to make sure all parts of our essay hit those points. But let's look at the lower half paper conclusions. They usually repeat or state the obvious. And so in that way, they're kind of useless, the lower half paper conclusions. If you're just repeating what you already said, you're suggesting that the person who's reading the paper wasn't paying attention or something. I know that they tell you to do that, and you could do that in other types of essays, but when we're talking about literary analysis, it's better to make a general observation instead of just repeating something that you already said. Now, if you're running out of time on a test, restate your thesis just so you have something. Right? That's better to restate your thesis than to put nothing. But if you have some time, it's better to craft a more rich conclusion. So I put some ideas up here at the top. Upper half conclusions for upper half papers are about pointing out the significance of what you've been discussing. You're also disgusting. Stop disgusting. Those you've been discussing in your paper. In other words, why is all that important? Right? Draw a conclusion. So you can do a universal truth type of conclusion. You can do an echo type of conclusion or characterize. All these are options for you. Look forward, like foreshadowing, right? So the universal truth one is where you take the main concept of a paper and state something true about the human experience. So what I wrote about was about Hamlet, but in actuality, there's a feature of that hits on all of us. Like this example. We all change and grow throughout our lives, but it is usually gradual and mild. Hamlet is abruptly forced into a profound change from wounded to wounder, from victim to avenger, which is likely to result in tragedy. So it's true that we all change, but hopefully we're not forced into changing as abruptly as Hamlet does in Act 1. Then there's the echo kind of conclusion, where you take an idea from the intro and you sort of reference it in the conclusion. This example talks about the ghost's appearance, and then the ghost's appearance comes up again in the conclusion. So it's kind of hard to take conclusions out of context, so I included the intro here, which talks about how Hamlet begins and ends with the disturbance of a ghost that gives Hamlet purpose. Well, Act 1. Shakespeare uses diction and repetition in Hamlet's soliloquies to show how he begins the act as a whiny child and ends it as a determined man. And so you can see that if that's the intro, this is the thesis. Then the conclusion is going to play off of that idea, right? So it comes back around full circle. By the time the first act of the play ends, we can see that there's already an upheaval more significant than the haunting of a ghost. Hamlet must find a way to change his focus and drive the revenge for his father by killing his uncle Claudius. There's a characterization one, right? There's a characterization question, so that makes sense to use that kind, right? And then there's the one where you're looking forward to sort of suggest what might be happening in the future. Hamlet's change from miserable complainer to enraged avenger suggests that the remainder of the drama will center around his ability to carry out the revenge against Claudius that the ghost seeks. That's a pretty safe bet. So these are just some ideas. You can combine them. You can think of other ideas too, but a lot of people are like, I don't know what to do in conclusion, so I'll just repeat myself. But there are other options for the conclusion. So give that some thought. Questions about that? I'm going to pass back your papers and let you take some time. We have about an hour or so to go through and continue your revision on the body paragraphs, maybe work also on the conclusion, since we've talked about it here. On Tuesday in class, I'll ask you if you have any questions, how your revisions are coming. Today while you're working, if you want me to read your paragraph or give you some feedback on what you've been working on with your paragraphs, I'm glad to do that. But you're going to submit a typed version of your revised essay for the Act 1 on Classroom Tuesday night. I wanted to make it Tuesday night and not just during class, because then that way if there are any lingering questions on Tuesday, you can ask me before it's too late that night. All right? Questions? All right, let me pass those back to you then.